So what is full tummy music and why am I complaining about it today? Full tummy music is a word that the new gen of fans, like, people my age, are using to describe artists, mainly rappers, who have reached a successful point in their career and just stop putting in the same effort, or it comes across as lazy. AKA, they're just not as hungry for it, hence the term full tummy music, since they no longer have any hunger for their craft. So today we're going to be looking into why this happens and see if it's possible for artists to avoid the curse of making full tummy music. What's good, gang? It's SB Cap, the Bonded Bandit. And if you like video topics like this, think about subscribing, because we're on the way to 1,000 subscribers and we're trying to reach that goal before the end of the year. Is it cutting it close? Yes. Might we reach it? Probably not, but God can try. But speaking of full tummy music, recently Uzi dropped a second album to his anticipated Eternal Take series, and saying it was met with disappointing reviews is kind of an understatement. While he had what I would say was at least 2 decent songs on the album, overall this album was just another work piece in a recently long line of disappointing works when it comes for Lil Uzi. And it's just not Lil Uzi. Rich the Kid, Famous Dex, and Jay Critch recently dropped another Rich Forever tape that no one heard of around the same time Uzi dropped. And despite this being a successful tape series in the past, it was, no exaggeration, the hottest pile of garbage I've ever heard. Along with many other artists today, including Lil Baby, G Herbo, NBA Youngboy, and many, and I mean many more, it just seems like the people who gave us undeniable classics in the past 4 years are all stuck in a slump. So today we're gonna get to the bottom of it, starting with what causes musical hunger in artists, or in this case, a rapper. Because when you're starting out, it might start out as fun, as you're working on your craft and you dream of being able to make a living from your passion, or maybe you're just hoping that your passion can change the situation for you and your family. But as you keep pursuing this, you realize that there's a long and tedious road ahead of you. From the ostracization from your family members and friends, or even strangers telling you to go to college and get a job. Or even with your romance life, how almost every girl might write you off because they see you with somebody with no future, making it harder to overall just find love. These type of things causes emotions such as anger, sorrow, frustration, and in even other cases, motivation. And these emotions can translate into art, as art is often considered a powerful medium for expressing and experiencing a wide range of feelings, making them essentially go hand in hand. That was a quote from Google, by the way. But if you don't believe me, Travis Scott was sleeping on his grandma's floor before he got famous. XXXTentacion was living in a bedroom apartment with other rappers such as Little Tracy and Ski Mask the Slump God, with upwards of 10 other people with no stable income to get by day to day. NBA Youngboy was tired of living in Fredo Bang's shadow and being a side character, being taken advantage of while already living in poverty. And these kinds of stories are actually quite common with musicians, or at least they used to be. More on that later. But I say this to say that struggle builds character and emotions, which in turn turns into art. The only way you can be hungry for something is if you had to starve for it. For example, Lucky, Gunna, Stunna 4 Vegas, Meek Mill, and V's are all rappers that were rapping for 10 years plus before ever touching any kind of success. And if that's not starving for it, then I don't know what is. But if most artists have to claw their way up to prove their hunger, what happened? Honestly, I think the problem is that most artists don't have to work as hard as they used to. Like we just went over, most rappers had to grind for 10 years plus sometimes before they can even start touching any success. But most new rappers don't have to wait that long. In my last video, Does Rap Hate Prodigies, which I'll put right here if anybody wants to watch it. Haha, promo. We went over how the 2013 to 2016 class/era of rappers changed the scene, and one of the things they changed was the barrier entry. Most rappers are only grinding for about a year or two before reaching any type of success, with 4 years usually being the maximum time span for most people. The best example of this is an artist called Osama Sun. Now this is no diss to Osama Sun, I think he's a decent artist, but he was only seriously rapping for about 2 years before dropping the mixtape that blew him up, with him now sitting at almost 400k Instagram followers. Now normally this is a good thing. With the barrier entry lowered, a lot more artists can find success, but the negative downside to this is that when you haven't sacrificed as much for your passion, it doesn't hold the same weight as someone who's dedicated a whole decade of their life to it. Now, I'm not saying 2 to 4 years isn't a long time, but a decade is way longer. If you invest that many years of your life, you'll be less willing to let anybody, and I mean anybody, take that spot from you. And not just that, I feel like when you've been making music for that long, you've already experienced writer's block multiple times and kind of have a creative process to overcome it. Take that with a rapper who's still in the I'm just rapping for fun stage, but they got successful early. It's no surprise that when they do hit a writer's block, they haven't developed that creative process yet to overcome it and that results in very uninspired music being released. Now multiply that by 1,000 and you got yourself a full-time music epidemic. And no, this isn't to say that good music doesn't get released anymore, because it does, but the ratio is so crazy that you might just believe that it doesn't. I couldn't find the video, but I remember hearing the story of how Meek Mill, after signing his first record deal, he was in the studio every day, like he was still fighting for a deal. Apparently, he was in the studio more than the guys who weren't signed to a record deal. Now, I know you could argue that Meek Mill makes full-time music now, currently in the present day, but he's had a 10-year plus career filled with hits. So I think it's kind of okay for him to now be on the less inspired side. But I have to say, because right after the beef, Drake dropped Hey Delilah, and that shit was hot garbage. That's just me personally. A way to solve this problem could be taking long breaks in between drops, like Kendrick does, for example, because it still seems like he still has his fire. But look what happened to Roddy Ricch. Not every rapper can pull off a break, and I think for artists to stay inspired, it's not an easy task. But I really believe that the situation is for rappers to go through a long training period where they work on their artistry while still trying to reach success. But who knows if that's bound to happen. Anyways, that's the video. Just a quick one for you guys. If you agree or disagree, leave a comment down below. Let's talk it out. It's been that boy SB Cap, the Bonded Bandit, reminding y'all boys to keep chasing the bag.